For coming. Welcome to our question time event for this by-election. Thank you to all the candidates, thank you to everyone here. So just before we start, just going to say a bit about the Students' Union who have organised this event in place of anyone else doing anything in the lead-up to this by-election. The Students' Union works with the community on a regular basis with local schools, in putting on a range of volunteering activity with the community, from Green Lancaster to our schools opportunity department. And then aside from that, with our Sugar House and licensing group, we work with Pub Watch in ensuring that the Sugar House is one of the safest and best nightclubs in the city, and has recently just got alcohol accreditation and the Best Bar None Award at a gold standard from the NUS. And then aside from that, just before we begin, as students, we believe we want the City Council to commit to welcoming thousands of international students to the city and celebrating a diverse community, supporting student tenants in the city by cracking down on dodgy landlords and spiralling rents, and lastly, listening to student residents. Students might only be here for 3 years or a short time, but they are probably the biggest part of Lancaster and what makes it such a great city. So just before we start, we're going to have a video, if I can work the technology, and if you've got any questions throughout, use the hashtag LCCvotes and tweet in your questions, and our chair will ask them as appropriate. I'm going to try this now.
All right, unbelievably, I can't believe I'm going to talk to you about it, but stick with me folks, let's do this. Lancaster City Council have got their by-election coming up on the 17th of May. If you live on campus, you've got the chance to vote. I want you to vote, and here's why. It's pretty dull until you think about the fact that every single bar and nightclub in Lancaster have a licence from the City Council, including on campus and the Sugar House. So whoever you elect will have a say in those decisions. The council are also responsible for housing and planning, which means they have a direct say in the quality of your home. The council also collects all the rubbish and recycling, which isn't that interesting until you think about, well, what happens when everyone's arguing about who should take bins out, but on a much bigger scale. Use your vote to have a say in how Lancaster is run.
Okay, hi guys, just a quick start to it. I'll get everybody to introduce themselves. I'm Harry, the chair, but you really don't need to worry about my name. So we did a coin flip at the beginning, and we've got Oliver Robinson from Labour starting us off. So you've got 2 minutes to introduce yourself.
Testing. Hi, I'm Oliver. I am a first-year politics, philosophy and history student, and I joined the Labour Party back in 2015 and the Cooperative Party earlier this year because I strongly believe in Labour values. As a city councillor, I will uphold these values of solidarity and equality, tolerance and respect throughout all of my campaigns, because by the strength of our common endeavour, we achieve more than we achieve alone. Lancaster has given me so many opportunities to talk to locals about their issues around the community, and it's for that reason that I want to help give back to the community. Talking to students during this campaign, we have found that local problems within this ward will always include mental health, the environment and the quality of student housing. Myself and Amara are running together as your Labour candidates, and as such we've created a strong, unified manifesto by working with key stakeholders such as the Student Union, Cat Smith, your MP, and Labour City and County Councillors to make sure that this manifesto is implementable, realistic and true to Labour values, desiring strength for our unity. We will work tirelessly to make sure the voices of this ward are heard as your representatives. Use both votes for Labour on this Thursday for a compassionate representation on the City Council. Thank you.
I'm Amara, I'm a first year linguistics student, and I first got involved with politics and the Labour Party a couple of years ago, mainly because I liked the way that the National Party was going and I wanted to get involved with it. And since coming to Lancaster, I've got involved with the community as much as I can. I'm the first female paying officer for the Labour Society, and outside of politics I'm involved with my department a lot. I am a freshers rep on the Linguistics and English Language Society, and I'm also on the Diversity, Inclusion and Equality Committee, as well as I'm a member of the Ethnic and Diversity Committee. And so the reason why I wanted to be a council was because I kind of thought that it was like a way to extend that role within the community, and I really wanted to ensure that not only do students get the most out of their time in Lancaster, but the city really benefits as much as it can from having us here because we have a lot to offer. Yeah, and so I think that a Labour council is really the way to achieve this, and I think it's important that Labour has a majority to kind of defend students' interests, but other people's interests as well in the rest of the city. And I think that our manifesto policies are really strong, and they would help us achieve this. So it's like better and more affordable housing, a safer, cleaner city, better connections between the city and campus, and for students' voices to be heard to university management. So yeah, we need our majority to get these through, so please give 2 votes to Labour.
So my name's Jade, I'm 19, I'm a second year student here at Lancaster studying history and politics. I'm currently a mentor for a first year student in politics, also at Primark in Lancaster. And I've also been involved in the Women's Rugby Club. I would like to represent students on and off campus, being a second year, having lived in both. I believe that you should vote with them for an alternative voice. The ward has been Labour since 2011. Your vote on the 17th of May can truly change the City Council and elect an alternative voice to Labour.
One sec. Can we just have claps held off until like after everybody's finished speaking? We're already wasting a lot of time. Well, I tried to do it before, but like everybody just kept going in. Just going. Anyway, sorry. Yeah. Ian.
Okay, anyway, I was going to say that I wasn't going to insult you because you can all read, so that's fine, we'll do that. Okay, this evening is actually really important for Scotland. There are enough people in this room right now that the decision of this election and who serves on City Council could well come out of it. Okay? Me and Jay take that really, really seriously. For example, I would drop my PhD from 5 days a week to 3.5 so that I could serve and actually do a proper job of this. Okay? The question is, do you care about that? Because there's 3 ways that people tend to vote in these things. Some people vote for the ones they want in national government. Fair enough, you send a tiny signal nationally, but that betrays your responsibility to vote for the person who you think could represent this seat and do a good job locally. Some people vote for their friends and acquaintances. Fair enough, maybe you help them build their CV and get kind of a reference on there. But that does actually completely undermine the whole process of democracy. Some people will listen to what's said, will look around, will look at the websites, and will vote for the person they think could be the best candidate to actually work in the local area and actually support local people. If so, I fully respect you, whoever you vote for, because your opinion is as valid as anyone else's opinion. So, my advice to you is to think about what people say, look beyond the promises, and look at the detail behind them. It's all very well to promise better, cheaper accommodation, great nights out, free ice creams, more Christmases, but if there's not an action plan there to actually do it, if there's not some competence, and if there's not some conscientiousness to actually care about people, it's worth literally nothing.
Choose wisely and enjoy your evening.
So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Guy, and I'm standing as the Conservative Party in this by-election. I'm originally from the Derbyshire Dales, or the Peak District, and I've come to Lancaster to study management, with a particular interest in organisational management and their structures. And for those that also don't know, I'm in County College, I'm one of the JCR welfare officers there. Now, I've been a member of the Conservative Party for about 4 years now, and standing in this by-election is really to bring some common sense politics to Lancaster that's been lacking from the Labour government that has been presiding over it for the past couple of years. And I think we should let residents and students have their chance to, put that right and change that for the better. I'm passionate about the City of Lancaster, and our 5-point plan addresses that in quite a suitable manner. That is protecting and enhancing the nighttime economy of Lancaster. That is improving the bus services. That's opposing the 5,000 homes that want to engulf our pleasant and green campus and spoil the surroundings and bring no benefit to students whatsoever. And supporting sustainable brownfield development within Lancaster itself, whilst also improving mental health and the services that surround that. Planning, licensing, budgeting and transport are areas of council responsibility that I take a key interest in, and I want to change for the better. Additionally, my responsibility for welfare at County has given me an insight into the workings of mental health at the university, and I believe that on City Council I can help change that for the better, whilst working with the university and trying to create a better environment for us all. I believe that 2 additional Conservative City Councillors will bring about change and do the best we can for Lancaster. I look forward to answering your questions this evening, and I hope I'm able to persuade you on Thursday to vote Conservative. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Callum Ferner. I'm a second-year economics student from Lonsdale College, and I'm standing for the Conservative Party in this by-election. I'm originally from Kent, but my family's Lancashire roots put this part of the world close to my heart. I've been a member of the Conservative Party for about 5 years, and I'm standing in this by-election to bring accountability to the City Council. As you've heard from Guy, we have composed a 5-point plan in order to improve the lives of people in our ward and across Lancaster. This by-election is the perfect opportunity to hold the Labour administration to account. While you will hear tonight that it was our university Labour councillors that saved the Sugar House, and only Labour can protect it in the future, that is a lie. It's a lie. It was the Labour leadership at City Hall that threatened the future of sugar by pushing through ill-conceived developments, leading to a campaign by many students and their representatives, including Lusu, of course. Not just the 3 Labour councillors fighting their own party's decision. Similarly, regarding building developments and regeneration, the Labour Party have failed us locally. That's failed us locally. And voting Labour again will not result in the change we need. The Labour City Council wants to build up to 5,000 houses in the green fields around our campus, and we oppose these plans. Our campus benefits from its green surroundings. Engulfing it in an urban extension of Lancaster will damage our environment, our quality of life, and goes against the expressed wishes of rural residents, who we must connect and build bridges with, rather than alienating them with an unnecessary development that won't benefit students. Thank you to everyone for coming, and hopefully tonight we will be able to show that the Conservatives are the best option for students.
Good evening, everyone. It's interesting to see there's probably more people in this lecture hall than come to my lectures. So thank you for coming. Just a little bit about myself. I've lived in Lancaster for just over 8 years. Moved up here to live in an eco-community just outside Lancaster. So that says something about my career credentials. I've taught at Lancaster for longer than I care to tell you, because it might be longer than people would like. I studied at Lancaster as well and achieved my doctorate here in 2012. I'm an occupational psychologist by profession, but I have a background as an architect. So when we talk about things like well-being and the housing situation here, I think I'm well placed to be able to comment on both of those. I'm self-employed, which means I would be able to give up the time to council activities should I be elected. The work that I do means that I work with organisations and with individuals to help them to make choices, to make informed choices about their lives. And I think that's partly what councillors should be doing as well. Should be engaging with the community to help people to make informed decisions. The things that I'm passionate about are environmental sustainability and human rights. And I don't think there's anything more important than those, because you can look at all of the other issues, but without those two things, we actually don't have a space to have those issues. I think the aim that I would look for here is to work with the university to enable it to achieve its world-class credentials and to achieve its green potential. So, enjoy your evening. I'm going to try to. And I do hope that you'll consider voting Green to get an independent voice, because all of the other parties have to follow a whip. We don't. Thank you.
Okay, so that's all of our candidates have introduced themselves. Maybe. So yeah, we'll bring that up if there's a question from the audience which brings it up. Mostly we're here to answer what everybody else has to ask. So we'll open it up to the audience. Is there anybody with a question? Hey, up there. If you can speak loudly, we've only got 2 minutes.
Okay, this is a question on the Labour manifesto. On it, it says that you have lobbied successfully for smart passes to be brought to the buses in Lancaster. Now, that's actually been a national move by Stagecoach and the other bus providers, and that's mainly based on their underlying profit line, so it's nothing to do with the council. So isn't this basically the whole of your manifesto is just a bunch of smoke and mirrors to hide the fact that you've done nothing, are doing nothing, and will continue to do nothing?
So, guys, first off, can we just keep it to questions? And I believe the question there was about the comment you've made in your manifesto regarding transport. So I guess it's mostly to Labour, so we'll pass to them.
So buses aren't even like a city council issue, really. Transport is to do with county council. Councillor Atkinson did everything she could to get smart bus passes. Yeah, it's not something that we have complete control over, so if anything, getting smart bus passes is an achievement. Like, it's not like we have control over that issue, so yeah.
Well, absolutely. It's good to see them Conservatives asking the hard questions. But, well, yes, if we want to talk about realistic policies, I'm sure we'll come on to that. But Labour will and always will stand up for student voices wherever. And it was lobbying from the previous councillors that brought smart bus prices to us. I never disagree, and I think we'll have to agree to disagree on this.
I think as well, you know, when the Labour councillors stood down, both the Lib Dems and the Conservatives gave statements saying that they respected the hard work and the things that they achieved. So to kind of make out that we've done nothing that's just a lie. Like, it's just a straight lie. Like, there's nothing else to say.
Okay, so do we have any other questions from the floor? Okay, lovely bit about that. I think we've got a mic which can come up to you.
No, it's fine, I can shout. I just want to make this a nice positive question, because that's what we're about in the Labour Party, positive campaigns. What will you do as a city councillor to improve the relationship between town and the city?
Hey, because we started over there, we'll pass to Jan to be able to first respond.
Could you repeat the question?
Okay.
What I heard was simply improving the relationship between town and city.
Yeah, what will you do as a city councillor to improve the relationship between town and the city? Between Cass and the city.
Effective relationship, just testing.
a really interesting question. Why do you think there needs to be an improvement between the relationship? Is there a problem with the relationship at the minute?
Yes.
What's the problem? Because what I'd have to do is explore what the problem is to see what the solutions might be.
Well, that's your job as a city councillor.
Yeah. And that would be my approach to it, would be to explore what are the issues, because you can't say what a solution would be until you've identified what the problems are. So I'm not going to put...
The issues are that it's very bubble, and that the people in town think that students just come here, study, take advantage of the services, and don't use local businesses, use big corporations, big companies, and don't actually put anything into the community.
When you say the people in town, that's quite a generalised statement.
The locals who aren't students.
What? And I would question how you know that, but to answer your question, one of the things that we would like to do is to look at the development around the South Corridor, which is an area that could be developed into a more of an arts hub, which would attract more people and students into the city centre, and would hopefully bridge some of those issues.
I think from the Conservative perspective anyway, is that the university is a massive driver of what goes on in town, and that town would not be what it is today without the university. And it does say something that Labour are slamming that down. Without, you wouldn't have the economy you would have in town without the university. It is a credit that the Students' Union do put a lot of effort into trying to work with the town and develop it, especially with the community side of things. Green Lancaster really does emphasise that. I know it's not a specific relationship, but it does generate. That Lancaster isn't just here. Is a balding thing on a hill that zaps the resources out of town, but it does give back, and it gives that back through economic benefits. And the fact that we have all this investment going on is, I think, a countenance to the fact that we are here. In terms of relationship, I'm sure it can be developed further. But I think it's important, that we put the university first here, because of course we're standing for University Council, and that's who we represent most of all at the beginning, and that's what we really need to focus on.
Wow, that was a brilliant answer, Guy. Really good. I'll just add on to that. The one thing that you don't do if you want to improve the relationship between the area that we're in, the university and the surrounding rural area, and the city council, is ignore the rural residents. When they put out a petition, more than 90% said they opposed the Balerig Garden Village. We've got very good reasons for that. It's going to put stress on services, it's going to put stress on the roads, it's going to put stress on healthcare in the area. So many things. The residents have said they don't like it, they don't want it, they recognise the damage it's going to do, and the city council knows. So that's what we will do to improve the connection between residents here and the city council.
Thank you. Very good question. You're correct. There is an issue. We've been to all the houses in the ward several times and identified it. It's essentially, the problem is there's the university, which is seen from the outside as this behemoth that kind of cares about its own future and its own standing in the UK and world rankings. And then there's actual students. There's you and I and real people. And actually, the people out there that I'll be talking to are real people. Genuinely, really nice, just turn up on a doorstep, have a good chat. So, the connection we need is between real people and real people. So, if you look at libdem.scotforth.org.uk, you'll see our action plan. I'll probably refer to that again. And it has on there some points specifically to address this. Also, if you look at some of our campaign videos on the Facebook page, you'll find them. So, we want to bring the campus and people in the community closer together. How do we do this? We want to create an app section on iLancaster, on our version, that links to a volunteering/remunerated employment page, where suppose you have a local person who's getting on a bit, struggles to cope with their garden, but maybe they have a bit of spare money, whereas you have a student who's really short on money, but quite likes getting outdoors occasionally, messing around in the garden. Link up these two people, make a human connection, make that possible, and you're starting to build a community. That's one simple way. I've also started making inquiries about getting a park put on campus. Why is that great? A, because actually the student population, okay, I'm asking them at 10 o'clock rather than 9 o'clock, because clearly 9 o'clock is quite early. We'll see. Anyway, it's really great for the student population in terms of us having fun, us getting together, our well-being, but it's also great in terms of people coming to do these. And it makes that connection, it makes an opportunity for interaction. And we see this throughout society, where people start telling us that immigrants are a terrible thing, and that everyone's really bad, and we should just keep to ourselves and lock the world away. That is utter nonsense. And the reason is people haven't had that connection. I was privileged to grow up in Birmingham. And there I've learned that actually a person is a person, and deal with it. And unfortunately, all these kind of individuals who haven't met each other get very prejudiced against each other based on some of the media that's mainstream that supports some people benefit from people who are angry. I'll leave it at that because I've had enough time, I'm sure. But do you want something?
I apologise, my phone is not very well, but it's really to carry on what Ian said, obviously being a second year and needing, obviously with maintenance loan, not everyone has enough money. I personally really struggled to find a job in Lancaster despite previous experience at New Look. Thankfully found a job at Primark, so there is clearly a need for more jobs in Lancaster and the local community to work with the students more. Have you mentioned the I Lancaster?
Yeah, feel free to reiterate.
Yeah, so obviously there is a TEMPS website where you can find part-time employment. But obviously it's very competitive because there is so many students on campus who need jobs in town. So we would like to work with I Lancaster and the university to provide another means of getting employment or even experience, because it's so important at university to be able to be comfortable enough to, money-wise, to live here. And I personally would love to see more jobs in Lancaster because I know myself and many other friends have really struggled to find jobs. So yeah, I think Lancaster would be a great way to do that.
So there's a couple of things. The first thing is that, so in our manifesto, the policies that we have about, strengthening between the city and campus. First, we want to get more small business deals on the Purple Card. We've already kind of discussed this with Lucy. It would be something that we could work with them for, because it would not only benefit us and help us save money, but I think it would be good to see more money going to smaller businesses rather than just the big supermarkets. Also, with all the developments that are coming up, we obviously want to see stuff like off-campus study spaces, retail spaces, an arts hub, stuff like this, just to encourage more students to be in the city, spending money there and stuff like that. Yeah, and I think it's worth noting that as Labour councillors, we would have a majority. We could actually realistically get these things brought into the city. As well as that, with the whole thing with Belwood Garden Village, first of all, the reason we're doing that is because it's a policy from the Conservative government. It's a Conservative thing. So, as well as that, houses are kind of important. It's all good kind of opposing it, but we have a homelessness problem. People in Lancaster who, students, once they graduate, they might want to stay around here. So I think even if we did oppose Belwood Garden Village, it wouldn't really be that smart because we're going to have it anyway. It would just then mean that a civil servant kind of decides how it is. It's much more practical for us to be involved in that and make it benefit the rural people as much as we can, rather than just kind of trying to dismiss it and oppose it entirely.
Well, yes, I'm not going to take lectures about Belwood Garden Village, considering it is central government policy, but as it is, we can do much to shape the plans that are planning to be implemented. We can implement the local plan, we can ensure that developments work for all, we can ensure that there is business development in town to support the new jobs that are needed, to support high-skilled jobs so we can retain graduates here from Lancaster University. And I really think that it comes down to shaping. That is the role of the City Council in this. It's down to shaping the plans from central government and making sure that they work for everyone.
Can I say that?
We'll pass it around again a bit, but I believe this gentleman up here had a question about what's currently going on. Yes, you. Me. Yes. Is it to do with the
it's to do with Garden Village.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's been brought up.
The land price in the area is such that from understanding what happens with developments, the land price in the area is such that as the surrounding property prices are already around the $500,000 mark, the Garden Village development, the base price of a house there would most likely be probably around 600,000, which your point was that it would reduce homelessness. 600,000 houses that start at £600,000 are not going to decrease homelessness. In fact, 10,000 homes at £600,000, they're mainly being built for academics coming in for the, I believe it's a biology department or something that the university is building. That's the reason all these homes are, the plans going forward to being built. So it's not going to reduce homelessness. It's not going to stop the inner city problems with young people struggling to get homes. So why
that there's a bigger to do that, and then they wriggle out. And we've seen this time and time again. So we need to be on top of this from day one and to challenge this development in terms of the number and the type of homes, and looking, you've already mentioned about the lack of infrastructure. If you look at the key developments down in Lancaster, there's hundreds of homes being built down there, and there's no infrastructure being planned for that. There's no shops, there's no schools, there's nothing to help those houses being built there. And that would be the same situation here. So we'd rather see, if there are homes to be built here, that they are of a different sort, more sustainable and more variety of homes, but also to look at the housing stock in the city. There's an awful lot of housing in the city which needs to be redeveloped and needs to be brought up to good standards. That's something that should be focused on, as well as looking at building on brownfield sites in town. So not brownfield sites out of town, but building, if we need to develop more homes, to look at existing housing stock, existing buildings that could be renovated and retrofitted, and looking at brownfield sites.
I think we should go into coalition, Jan. That was an absolutely brilliant answer. I could not agree more with what you said. And this is why we also oppose the plans. As I mentioned previously, the planning assessments with regards to flooding, for example, that's yet to be released by the City Council. We don't know what the impact of that will be. We've seen flooding only this past year. I think it's egregious, really, from the City Council that they haven't released any planning relating to that. Again, I'm just going to bring up something that Labour said about it being a Conservative central government proposal. That isn't conducive to helping us criticise the plans when they're wrong. It doesn't matter what party is proposing it. If the plan is wrong, it's wrong, and that's why we oppose it.
I want to put one
been made, a lot of moderately correct conclusions coming out, a lot of detail missed for the wrong reasons. So there are problems with the kind of high-level philosophy of the situation. There are problems, as you very rightly point out, with affordable housing being an absolute joke. Mr. Corbyn's made some good points about that as well. But the really big problem is that no one's actually planned this. You read the Secretary document, and it's got the words master plan everywhere. It's great, it's a master plan. But I have a letter here with me where the Chief Planning Officer admits they have not actually conducted a transport study as to what the implications would be. That is the basic starting point. The problem here is that we planned a solution specifically, well, I'll let these guys start that one out, but someone has planned a solution without looking at what the problem was. This is a point Jan raised earlier. If you want to find something and make it better, first look at the problem. So, what hasn't been factored in? Well, first of all, Lancaster is the second most congested city in the whole of England, in terms of the speed you can reach at rush hour, behind central London. Lancaster is way over the World Health Organisation's allowable levels of pollution in the centre because we have loads of vehicles stuck there in a massive traffic jam. How do the people, so if you have 2.4 people per house, which is a standard estimate, how do those people get out from the sandwich between junctions 33 and 34 without going through either Goldgate or going through Lancaster city centre? Where do they work? Where do their children go to school? The council cannot build more schools. It's not allowed because the government says no. The council does not build GP surgeries. That's a quasi-market because the government made it that way. Okay? You actually have to think these details through. And then you go to the infrastructure. Come a proposal, ooh, let's split junction 33 in half. Northbound slip roads can come near the university. Think about it, right? The people going south through Colgate, queuing for an hour every rush hour, making really bad pollution problems. The local people can't go anywhere they want to go. They want to go south. Okay? Little details like this that people aren't actually looking at. And it makes you quite cross, because you wonder, what are these councillors doing? You wonder, what are the leaders of the council doing? Look at the details. If you want to cross the railway, you have to pay the people who own the land for the railway 30% of the profits. Bang goes your affordable housing. Incidentally, while we're on the topic, where has all the money that's been paid by recent developers towards the affordable housing fund in Lancaster in lieu of building affordable housing, because no one wants to, because it's not profitable, gone? Because we're not finding out. We're asking, and the council aren't telling anyone. Where is it gone? Can we have some transparency on that, please? I think rant over for now.
Just to carry on quickly, obviously we do support housing developments nationally because people need places to live. But having spoken to local residents, they sort of don't understand what's happening. That's not anything to do with them, it's to do with what the council's already said. But obviously we support housing. Just like that. People not really knowing what's going on. It's still in the early stages of development, so I think that could possibly be a reason why. As well as I understand the thing about developing on brownfield land, which is true, but at the same time we need 13,000 more houses, I think. So it's kind of it's just not going to be enough. The garden village is going to happen. We just allocate the land where it's going to be. I understand what you're saying about although it's conservative, you still want to criticise it, but at the same time it is happening whether we like it or not. The decision now is basically, are we going to have control over it, or are we going to let someone far away?
Yeah, so as Ryan has said, simply developing only on brownfield sites, we're not going to have the necessary housing. And coming back to the affordable housing, we can mandate that there is some affordable housing there. And affordable housing not based on what is average market price, but is based on actual people's wages who live here. And that is what is important at the Berry Garden Village, and we can do it. And it's going to happen. And I'm not entirely sure why the other parties are perhaps saying it's not going to happen, it's going to happen. Local councils can't oppose central government when Westminster has made its mind up. Much of you perhaps wish it was the reverse.
I'm gonna, first off, we move on from this question. We've spent a while on it, but before we get another question from the audience, we had a candidate join us a bit late. So, Martin, do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Hello, I'm Martin, third year environmental science student, graduating this year, and keen outdoor enthusiast. I'm not a politician, so I'm going to be honest. I was late because I took a nap at 5 o'clock, and 2 hours later it's 7:10, and I think, so I apologise to you all. It shows that I'm not feeling that great today. Anyway, I want to bring kind of sustainable and social change to Lancaster, essentially. So this year I've heavily involved with things that aren't my degree, maybe too involved, and I really want to dedicate this next year, when I'm totally free from my degree, to the time to it within the council, or bring the council to help things through. So I've done some of those things are food poverty and working with refugees alongside sustainable projects. And there are a lot of, with the food poverty and refugee things, there's a lot of dots that are going on, a lot of groups in Lancaster that are doing things, probably a lot more than you might think, which is pretty amazing. And a lot of them, it would be great to try and help collaborate with them, within each other, but also bring the university into it too, with the great thriving students. A lot of them are kind of got an ageing population that should really bring great minds, creativity, and life to projects like this. And a lot of refugees, for example, are young guys who want to see other young guys, and they're stuck a bit later. So it'd be great to pop the council bubble, bring you into what's going on to the town with projects that you might not know about and that you could really have a success with.
I believe this gentleman in the yellow shirt, just a quick reminder to everybody, if you want to tweet questions, also feel free to do that. That hashtag is just up there. But yes, your question.
So, the Lancaster Students' Union has recently joined a nationwide campaign for a second referendum. Do you support this important local body in this endeavour?
Well, apparently I've got the microphone on that, so with the badge and have a guess. But actually, it's not a blind stupid idea. Actually, probably most people in this room have thought about it, and probably most of you actually want a future. And probably most of you are open to other people. And probably most of you aren't as bigoted as maybe some people who thought, oh, let's whip up a load of racial hatred and get everyone to vote against having actual open society. So I have a hell of a lot of figures. I can show to you that immigration is very good for this country, almost uniquely actually. Most countries do lose out for immigration, but the UK have somehow managed to do a brain drain poach of most of the people who come here are actually really talented, really well qualified people who add an awful lot to our economy. There's a belief going around that was popular in about the 1600s that there's a fixed supply of jobs. Okay? I'm only a 3 with a PhD in economics. I can tell you for a fact that's not how it works. If someone else comes and gets a job, that generates extra value in the economy, and that means that there's potential to have more jobs. Simple example for people who aren't yet convinced. Take the UK. Take another UK and merge it. There's twice as many people after our jobs. Get rid of them. Send them out. No. That's stupid. Actually, what you have is a situation where there's greater sharing of wealth and knowledge. There's more people. That means a greater opportunity to get really the better minds together to generate wealth. There's greater opportunity to actually have a bigger market so that companies become viable that weren't viable in a smaller market. And I could talk to you about this all day, and I can show you lots and lots of figures. Please come and talk to me at the end, okay, if you're not yet convinced. It is a very good thing for the UK to be part of Europe, and I am very sad that no one, including the muppet who called the referendum and then decided to fight it himself, no one stood up and said, actually, immigration is a good thing, and actually, openness is a good thing. We've been there before in the 30s, is all I'll say.
We don't really want a second referendum. Like, the decision's been made. We have parliamentary democracy for a reason. But at the same time, I kind of think it does a disservice to local democracy to try and make out that we'll have any influence over these issues. If any of you are thinking about voting for a space in our opinions on the EU, it's kind of ridiculous. We'll have nothing to do with that. Think about the local issues, and that's what we should be voting on.
Well, absolutely. I'm not sure it was a good idea for any member of the student union to sign said letter without first consulting the student body. And I'm also convinced that this is not relevant to local government. I personally support Remain, or at least I did, and now I think we need to push forward and push beyond this and talk about local issues that matter to people here.
But I'll say something as well. Obviously, nationally, we support the EU. I think it's obviously when I stay in the EU, it's such a big decision, and the government was hardly given a mandate to carry on with Brexit. You know, to get a majority. So that's sort of saying it. You know, we don't want to resort back to when Britain was just by itself. Of course, it's so important to work with other countries, to see views other than our own, and just that's the best way to get the best decisions. We're a country, a tiny country, we can't really do that much by ourselves. We need the trade that's in the EU, and we need to work together to give younger people opportunities that they wouldn't have if we weren't in the EU. But yeah, I think a second referendum is so important because it's not a decision that 650 MPs should decide for a whole country. I think it's so important because I've just turned 19, so I wasn't able to vote in the EU referendum. So my mind was sort of made up by someone else. So I think it's so important for us to have to say.
Right. Interesting view from the Lib Dems there. Not that we didn't hear that before. But generally, I'd say, first of all, as echoing Labour here, which is rarely something I say, you know, this has nothing to do with City Council. But from both our perspectives, Callum and I are both behind Brexit fully. We believe that it is the right way forward. You know, and I believe there is a massive opportunity for us in the future, and whatever comes from that. You know, when Ian started talking about immigration there, you know, thinking, you just bring back Project Fear, which was the most abhorrent thing I'd ever seen, you know, in British politics for a long while.
Who ran it?
Pardon?
Who ran it?
Exactly, but that's not my point. You see, the point on that, though, if you're bringing immigration to this debate, first of all, as I say, we're not talking about immigration, we're talking about a city council by-election. I mean, immigration sure brings lots of benefits to Lancaster, and we support bringing the brightest and best to our country and supporting our economy. I'm not going to get into the depths of immigration here, because that's a completely different debate. But it's important to recognise the will of the British people and in fact, fully carry out what was happened on the 23rd of June. And I'm sure Callum, when I pass the microphone, will fully support that motion as well.
Well, I support Brexit. I'm an economist too, Ian. That's fine. You mentioned nothing about, you know, occupational downgrading or immigration study reports keeping the marginal cost of public services to zero, therefore skewing the results. Just glossed over that. So I'm happy to have a debate with you over that any other time. But really, I think we need to get away from the divisions that have been plaguing the political scene since 2016. We had a referendum. The result might not be what you wanted, might not be what many people in this room wanted, but we had a result. Let's get away from the divisions. Let's just move on and build a better Britain.
Woo!
Thank you for raising the issue. Some interesting comments so far. You asked the question, what would be the position on a second referendum? Yeah. I'll come to that in a moment. So I just want to think about the impact of Brexit on the university.
because you said it's a national issue, it's not a local issue, but it does become a local issue when it impacts on the university. Now, I personally can see an impact. I've been involved in European funded projects over the years, and those are going to disappear. Yeah? So where's the funding going to come for the research within the university? Also, where are a lot of the students going to come from? Because they're going to be put off coming here. In answer to your question, the Green Party policy is to have a second vote. So that's answered your question.
I agree that it's a bit of a loss, and there are a lot of things that we gain from being part of the EU. A lot of that is the people, the idea of people coming in, not necessarily the biggest and brightest minds, but just different characters, and things like Erasmus through the EU have been brilliant things that both people at university gain from and people coming to university gain from. That's just 2 cents from personal experience.
Thank you guys. Yeah, we won't carry on with that. As has been raised about, this is for local council, just trying to take as many questions from everybody though as possible. So if anybody has one, we'll take that gentleman there, and if you like a question, Mike will come to you in a sec.
I've got a fairly loud voice. Fine, thank you very much. I'm somebody who's helping to set up a company to make microfluidic chips for blood diagnostics, and we're based in the chemistry department at Lancaster. If this plan goes well, and it is going very well after 4 years, we hope to be occupying the Health Improvement Campus, which is being built alongside the university. We hope we will have employees who will be buying houses in the area, and we hope to be producing good local jobs. Now, if the People's Referendum, People's Second Vote, goes ahead successfully, we'll be employing something like 50 people locally, is our estimate in 5 years' time. If we do not, and we come out of Europe, we'll be lucky to have 12 jobs locally, because our main manufacturing will have to be in Italy. But do you want to see jobs of this sort around Bale Rig? Because Bale Rig is the hub that's driving a lot of the local economy.
So, like has been commented, EU is something maybe people can bring up in their responses, but I believe most of the question is about jobs which are based around Bale Rig, and your opinions on those and how you approach it from a city council point of view. So we'll go to Conservatives.
Well, I mean, it's not going to be the end of the world. If we do leave, then we leave on the terms that are currently being negotiated. I really don't know what to say other than I don't think the doom and gloom picture is helping. The university will still get funding from central government in one form or another. Yes, we don't know what that will be. But again, we're continuing with this EU thing. The city council, this is a local city council by-election. No matter who you vote for, they can do nothing about Brexit negotiations or EU jobs or anything like that. So we need to be focusing on the local issues that affect Lancaster directly, that we can do something about, like the Garden Village, like mental health services at the university. So that's all I have to say.
No, just entirely to your point, Callum. Especially when you talk about the local economy, and you talk about that post-Brexit entirely counted the nail on the head. Whatever happens, who you elect in this election, it's irrelevant of that result. And it's unfortunate that that's the case, obviously, because you've asked a really quite a genuine question. All we can say is that if you elect us as your city councillors, we will do the very best for the local people and keep the economy thriving as we can. And I think that's as much as we can ever say, or anybody can say on the matter.
Can I just talk about the EU? It was a question more of keeping jobs in Bale Rig. Yeah.
That's right.
I think
that with the EU context, I'm saying, with regards to
Well, I know encouraging certainly graduating students is on the council plans to stick around and work in where they've been, and what better place to work where you know where you live and what's around. So I think raising awareness between council and students' union for raising job awareness is high on the priority list and something that I enjoy working towards.
I think there's probably three issues in relation to your question. One's around jobs, one's around local housing, one's around transport. So we're fully supporting the encouragement of the jobs here and maintaining the knowledge that's created here. And thank you very much for setting up something locally. In terms of Balerig as the centre for that, just because the jobs are here doesn't mean to say that people have to live here. And one of the things that we've proposed for quite a long time is to improve the transport links across Lancaster to address some of the issues that were talked about earlier and to create a single line transport, which would be really easy to do, right through to Morecambe, which would have the effect of regenerating there as well. And I'm sure, does anyone live in Morecambe? No one live in Morecambe? I wonder why. It's because it's so hard to get to. Right? Plus the fact is it's, well, how desirable is it to live in Morecambe? But it would open that up as well. So we're talking about a bit of regeneration there as well, which we want to do across the council. So across the city.
So, in terms of having more people here to work, the council's really looking for a lot of innovative ways to kind of develop and expand with things like Canal Quarter and even Private Garden Village that'll bring a lot more people in, which kind of would reduce kind of the disadvantages that we get from leaving the European Union. So yeah, I think we've got a lot of exciting things coming up, like the Eden Project or and developments in places like Morecambe and stuff like that. So yeah.
If I could stop us exiting the EU with a snap of my fingers, I would, but I can't. I'm sorry. But the bulk of Brexit is covering everything, and I would like to move away from that and towards a more positive vision for the local district, where we build the houses that we need, and we have the brilliant scientific programs that will help us retain graduate jobs and help expand the Lancaster economy, because if we have more people working here in high-paid jobs, they'll spend more in the local economy, and that can only be good for everyone.
Just to say, we do like Morecambe, it's got a nice beach. But clearly, it's very clear how much the EU is affecting jobs here. Like you said, it's 50 to 12 jobs. Obviously, we can't decide whether we'll leave Europe. We are, but whether there's a referendum. But I think it's important that you have someone on the council that understands the effects of the EU and leaving the EU, because it clearly does have a local effect, whether it's a national policy or not. Like I said before, there's not enough jobs in Lancaster for students alone. So if we did have a better stance on the EU, a more liberal stance on the EU, I think it would increase job opportunities.
Well said. I mean, you know my views on this already, so I'll respond to a few things that have been brought up about various local plans, initiatives and investments. Really good that the Eden Project's coming. I think that's a great idea. I don't necessarily know whose idea that was, but I doubt it was the council, but never mind. Maybe it was. We'll bet if it was. How about things like £4 million to improve Williamson Park? Now, I love Williamson Park. I go there several times a week. I think it's an absolutely brilliant resource for the people who live very nearby. I question whether spending £4 million doing things like making the field a bit drier when it rains is a good trade-off versus having quite a lot of people who don't have a roof over their heads, who cannot afford to eat. The council supposedly has a purview for homelessness, and I know councils across the country are failing at this. But why don't we start setting an example? There are no Liberal Democrats in the council at the moment. We would like to actually have some representation. We would like to have an alternative voice in there. We would like to have someone who says,
4 million quid on improving a park, which probably just means that fewer people get to use it because then we try to coup back the cost by charging people more to go there and park there, etc., and don't let events go there without paying for money. Why don't we actually start looking at the empty houses at the entrance of the park and say, oh, why don't we try and open these up and get people who don't have anywhere to live? Imagine not having a house. There are people sat here who do a lot of work with, on an individual level, working with people who need help, and I really recommend them for doing that, okay? But you need someone with some clout and some money to actually say, hang on, people don't have a house. People don't have food. People get ill and die. How many years younger if you're homeless? Why don't we actually stand up and do something about this instead of like brushing the problem away, try not to notice? Sorry, I'm ranting again, I'll pass it on.
Gentleman up there, yes, you've had your hand up for a while. Do you have a comment?
Not on EU, it's on the separate topic.
Okay, yeah. Is there anybody who had a comment on the kind of discussion about jobs in the area, not the EU per se? Cool, yes, shall we have the gentleman in the red shirt then? Burgundy.
Yeah, it was just about jobs and job creation locally. It's quite interesting to hear the Liberal Democrat candidates waxing lyrical about spending money when they backed the Tory government for 5 years, slashing local government spending, slashing jobs left, right and centre, and now they want us to forget just a few years later that they are equally responsible for homelessness and joblessness in this country today.
I too felt the same by the coalition government. I left the Liberal Democrats when that happened. I only rejoined about a year ago when I realised actually it's about time to move on and try to do something positive. However, please compare the coalition government outcomes with the outcomes under the present not coalition government. Well, I mean, it's kind of coalition, it's kind of DUP, but anyway. Okay. First of all, pupil premium. The biggest success of the whole government that really starts to narrow the achievement gap. I've been a teacher for 5 years, I have seen it. I have seen the difference between people who have a supportive background, who can afford the things they need, who have their own bedroom to sleep in, and people who've never seen a cow. I taught in Birmingham, there's lots of them. They think milk comes from the supermarket. People who've never had their own opportunity to actually do something for themselves. Things like the Youth Edinburgh programme, which my school supported because it had people giving money to do so. Things like enrichment and free musical instrument lessons that we all, probably most of us, take as a right or a privilege that we're used to. These kids do not have that chance. The People Premium is one of the best things that came out of their government. Thank you, Lib Dems, for actually making a change and making a difference to what otherwise could have been a disaster. I can go on about many more examples, but I know that we have other people here to talk.
So, just to say, we don't, me and Ian aren't MPs, we don't have a say on national policies, but as candidates, and if we were elected as councillors, we'd like to increase jobs and increase the chance that people have at a good life and a chance to have a house and a chance to earn money for themselves. I think it's the coalition government, yes, it wasn't the best, but there were very good things that came out of it, such as the same-sex marriage legalisation. I think it's more important to focus on those sort of things nationally, because that has led more people to being able to be complete themselves. And obviously locally, we don't have a say nationally on Lib Dem policies, but locally we would like to improve the lives of people in Lancaster, which currently there isn't a Lib Dem voice in the council, but obviously we could create that.
So does anybody else on the panel currently have something to say on the topic? Yep.
Yeah. So in terms of homelessness, like Labour has taken action on that. We built a homelessness hostel, as well as having like officers dedicated to kind of dealing with that. And with Williamson Park, like the investment in that brings more money into the area, which kind of is important as well. So it's not like, you know, we're just developing it. It does play a
Yes, if we want to talk about homelessness, I'll remind you that homelessness under the coalition government was increased by half, but under the Labour government it was decreased by 41%. So that's
I know from the council, the figures for homelessness are about 3 actual rough sleepers in Lancaster. It's quite a good job at housing them, as far as I know. Whether that's an optimistic number that they gave me. But yeah, homelessness is an issue. Most have somewhere to go at night, which is a nice thing to know.
Hey, thank you. We'll take a question from you then. For
What is the panel's opinion on the City Council's decision to reform rates on unoccupied homes, which was taken in January under the budget? So there's a 100% discount for a month. It's now occurring as opposed to a 6-month discount, which occurred.
Sorry, could I just ask you to clarify?
Well,
I didn't quite understand your point.
in the budget taken in January, there was a motion that was passed by the Labour councillors that would reform the rates offered on unoccupied and levied on unoccupied homes, so that it would result in a 100% discount for 1 month as opposed to a 6-month discount.
So I think the reason that they did that was kind of to stop student landlords kind of just keeping homes empty. It kind of encourages people more quickly to kind of fill those homes up when we already don't have enough houses. I think that's kind of a good idea.
Yeah, great idea. Nice one. Well done.
You know, housing is a difficult problem, especially in a place like Lancaster. We're very unique in Lancaster to say that for the small size of our city, or town, I should put it, it's very hard to tackle, especially with the student population. You know, personally, I'm against any form of tax on unoccupied residencies, purely because it drives up the costs in the first place. Because if you're, for example, if you're a landlord and then they're taxing you on the basis that you might be redoing the house, but you're just leaving it there. You know, you might be going abroad, you might have other things to do, and you just leave it there, and then you get taxed on that basis. It disincentivizes landlords to even exist in town. So instead of putting up, the housing stock in Lancaster, it decreases it, because that might be bought by somebody who isn't, has that best intentions that they may do something with it, or it may just not exist. It doesn't benefit students in general at all. And it gets away from the point that we believe in, generally, if it's your property, do what you like with it. That's what we live in a free market, and that's what I believe in. And I think it's your right to do what you like with your own property.
Well, no landlord wants an empty property because that's property that could be earning rent or whatever. If it's empty, there's probably a reason for it. Either the landlord has decided not to let it out for whatever reason, maybe they're renovating it. We've got a lot of renovations going on in student housing, including a lot of loose housing, for example, at the moment. So if it's empty, there's a reason. Putting a tax on top of that is going to disincentivise landlords, at least in our view, from actually keeping student properties in a good condition, and also the housing stock in general. There are much more important things we could be focusing on, like the canal corridor, and building on brownfield sites that would do much more for things like housing costs, the quality of accommodation, and the supply of accommodation in Lancaster.
That's a really interesting point. I think as well as the sorts of things you've been talking about there, that what should be doing more, what should be being done more is incentivising landlords to renovate their homes to a better standard, so that they're putting them to an even better standard above building regulations, which is not being done at the moment.
Just trying to...
So what I'm understanding from it is that the 6 months would allow more people to live in houses. Is that what I mean?
So just a clarification from what was said. It's essentially an empty house is taxed,
used to be 6 months you wouldn't be taxable, and then after that you would start being taxable, or it's now 12 months. Is that correct? Yes.
Well, I feel like it's important if there's any empty houses to obviously house people. I'm not sure how many people go on holiday for 6 months. I think your point is valid, but there are not many people go on holiday for a whole month. Or if they do, I'm sure there's a way they could inform someone.
Well, it's more about renovations. A renovation can take longer than a month.
Yeah, but if you, I'm sure the council would put in provision to say that if you're renovating the house, you technically do live there, so you won't get taxed on it. But it's very important, if there is an empty house, a genuine empty house, that it is taken up, because like you said, there is an issue nationally with housing. So.
Well, yes, if people can have second homes, that's fine, but we need to think about those people who need to get on the housing ladder. Most students won't be able to afford to have one home, let alone have one to rent as well. It's not fair, I think, on young families who want to get on the housing ladder. And let's think about what we can do with this, the extra money that we can bring in. It means we can maintain the benefits relief from council tax, which was opposed by the Conservatives in the last budget. And we are one of the only councils still to do this. And this is, I think, what a housing policy looks like for the many, not the few.
Just another thing on housing, I think it's worth mentioning that a Labour councillor, Councillor Burns, is what is in our manifesto policy as well. We want to increase licensing so it extends to houses with like 3 and 4 rooms instead of just being there for 5. So that's a really good way to kind of make sure that the quality of housing that we have is
Right, let's take a comment from the floor. Maybe the gentleman who's sitting on the stairs has had a hand up for a while.
Firstly, will the candidates pledge to at least maintain the current level of bin collection in the local area to prevent any further flight in the rural parts of the constituency? And secondly, will they pledge to at least petition the county councillor to start getting the potholes that have plagued the rural area filled in?
First of all, bins, right? I love bins. I love waste. All my passions or hatreds, depending on what range you're in, because I hate things going to waste. So yeah, anything related to that, I'm very keen to keep going, make sure there's less waste and more recycling going on. So a lot of the general waste in Lancaster, or the general waste here at the university, is picked by the council, which has been thrown away, not really sorted well. Lancashire is very bad with their recycling schemes. Which brings me on to a great thing that I want to bring to the campus, and with input from the town as well, is a project, a student-led plastic recycling scheme, where students can bring their any thermoplastic, so there are certain types of plastic which can be explained, that can be recycled and reformed into whatever you want, essentially. And that is more, although it's going to be great, you can make whatever you want, it's more of that social change to make people realise you can't throw things away. You can only move things from one place to another, such as moving it into your bin, which will then go to a landfill site. And really making you realise that you could do a lot more with that and that it's not really waste. So yeah, bins, I love it.
I actually don't share Martin's love of bins. I think looking at waste collections, looking at the end product, what we should be looking at is reducing the waste that we're producing to start with. So rather than bin collections, we should actually be reducing bin collections eventually. We need to move to that point by reducing the amount of waste that's generated. The community that I live in, we have committed to having zero to landfill. And that's something I think we need to move towards nationally, never mind locally. In relation to the potholes, having experienced a pothole whilst cycling and gone over the handlebars and broken my arm, smashed up my face, my glasses, and split my cycle helmet in two. I am passionate about eliminating potholes. Thank you.
I was going to moan about my punctured tyre, but that sounds a lot worse. But just on the fly tipping issue, Calum and I, whilst we've been out campaigning, we've been around the ward and around the local area. And you know, the fly tipping is just appalling. We found quite a bad example a couple of weeks ago, which we then reported, obviously. But it was quite an industrial size, wasn't it? It was a fridge or a deep fryer, so quite a large industrial fridge. You know, which, you know, that just being laid out in the middle of nowhere, spoiling the pleasant surroundings that we live in, is just appalling. I think I entirely agree with your point of just sustaining the level of recycling and waste collection around campus and in the university, obviously, and in town. But what is an important point is the work that the university does. Anyway, Green Lancaster is a very important point, and it's something that, you know, is very important. Us being a campus university, Green Lancaster is something that is incredible. And I think if you compare it to other universities, it's something that, you know, we really do strive against and for. You know, especially, and you know, if we're talking about, you know, getting down waste and increasing recycling, you know, the Students' Union and the university and the accommodation teams all do a really good job in trying to promote that for the residents on campus. So yeah, I think it's really just a really good push to seeing, you know, more recycling and obviously no fly tipping, hopefully, in the future.
So in relation to the part of your question concerning potholes, the County Council has recently raised the highway maintenance budget to £50 million, and it's so important that that money goes straight into improving the state of our roads. And that means going out there and whoever ends up being elected and reporting the potholes, getting them filled in, working with the county councillor to do that. I'm happy to work with anyone. I know at the moment it's Labour, that's unfortunate, but I'm happy to work with anyone because it shouldn't be about party politics or whatever, it's just about delivering for the local residents, and it's as simple as that, really.
So in terms of recycling, I live off campus. I think the on-campus recycling is really good. You've got all the bins, they're all separated. In terms of when you live in town, the bins are collected every 2 weeks. I'm not sure whether we just live in a particularly messy house, but usually we have stuff that we can't fit into the recycling bin. And that's without knowing that, so recently we discovered that the only plastic you could recycle was bottles, which leaves a lot of plastic that you're unable to recycle, which means more is going into the black bin, which just goes to landfill. It's not recycled. So I agree with John saying that we should increase the amount of times they're collected, but maybe if we only increase the recycling bins, because that's really important to continue to recycle more so than the black bin. I understand you can leave things outside of the bin, but I know that you can't leave any sort of glass or anything outside of it, and sometimes they don't take the bin anyway if it's not got a lid on. And in terms of potholes, obviously it's not very good. We need to improve our roads to improve the amount that people use them. And going on from that, another policy that we are really wanting to strive for is to increase the amount of people that use buses by reducing the annual fee. It's currently £258.99. I know that because I had to get a 2-term bus pass because I couldn't afford a 3-term. And that will only take you to Lancaster and Morecambe, so you can't go to the Lake District. So we would like to work with the City Council, the Student Union, if they can, and the university and Stagecoach to reduce the price of buses. And when we reduce the price of buses, we've got some money that we can use towards potholes. So overall, we want to increase the amount of good. I mean, I know no use of the road is very good, but if it's buses, it decreases the amount that people are using their own cars.
So with potholes, I don't think you can really talk about potholes without mentioning County Councillor Erin Lewis. Like, she's literally got pictures of potholes. So she's been working really hard, and we've been working with her to make sure that potholes are dealt with as quickly as they can be. She fought against changes that would have basically, if I'm right, that would have made it longer before we have to deal with the potholes. So that's one thing she's done on that. In terms of fly tipping as well, I know the council has just introduced new CCTV, which is roaming CCTV to kind of deter people from doing that basically. With buses as well, again, it's one of those issues that we don't really have control over. I think we're talking about people using cars less. One of the things that we want is a really good cycle path and try and encourage more people to cycle.
There's an awful lot of good points here. Obviously the Greens are very strong, they know their stuff on this. Certainly on the people side. Then you actually come to the question of why are people not recycling, and half the time it's because they're lazy, and half the time it's their life is really far too busy to worry about that detail. Actually, if you're in a poverty-stricken situation, it's really not that easy. And it's very hard for some of us to relate to that. I've got a very privileged life. I've got an income. I've got a stipend. Okay, but where we can therefore make the change is on a national level. But what we need to have is, instead of this and this and this and all these different ones, that we have some British standard bottles, so that stuff you buy in a bottle comes in the same bottle, it goes back to the supermarket, that is washed and reused. That is so many times better than recycling. If we have some British standard meat containers for food and for veg, then each time you use that, you take it back to the supermarket, you get some money back, and then that's reused, which is so much better than recycling in terms of energy and in terms of all different outcomes. We can put that change in place nationally so it's easier for people to live a very green lifestyle.
Thank you very much. Absolutely, on the issue of potholes, County Councillor Erica Lewis was absolutely pivotal in making the Conservative-controlled County Council reverse its policy, which would have, as Amara said, reduced the threshold for the time that one had to go and fix a pothole. Regarding plastic waste, our current mayor, Andrew Kay, is a crusader against plastic waste of all sorts. And regarding fly tipping, Labour City councillors have been absolutely pivotal in ensuring that there has been fly tipping in rural areas to prevent the sort of environmental degradation that comes from that sort of thing. Yeah, we're pretty good.
Okay guys, we're coming up to the end, so we've only got time for one more question, and I think to keep it fair for everybody in the audience, we'll take one which someone has tweeted, because we've been asking people to do that. This one is asking, the student union believes that they're trying to increase voter turnout. Why do you believe the city council may have been failing to engage the wider student population, and maybe how would you guys fix that? So we'll start with Conservatives, I guess.
So it's a question relating to voter turnout and how low it typically is among students.
So it's asking, yes, how would you engage the wider student population of Lancaster in in general with the city council and voting in particular?
Well, we have been, as just me and Guy, we have been more active than in the last by-election. We have been working to reach out to many student societies as well as the individual colleges throughout the election campaign to try and get, even if they don't vote for us, it doesn't matter, students need to have their voices heard. So we've been trying to get our message out there as well as just encouraging people to vote in general. We will obviously be active on campus on the day to try and make sure that people get out and vote. And I encourage everyone, obviously, I'm assuming you're all politically interested and that's why you're here, but do make sure you vote on the 17th, even if it isn't for us, but make sure it isn't for Labour because they're awful.
The last one. No, it's things that, across the board students don't like to vote, and it's important that the university and the students' union especially try and really engage with that. have a lovely, you had the lovely video of Josh Wolf up there earlier, which, you know, it's one step. Nothing's good at all. But no, it's more the point that they, you know, there is obviously more that you can do, and you can do more to anything. And it's a step-by-step process, and hopefully we can get people up to vote. You know, last time we had the by-election for this seat, it was appalling, 7%. You know, so hopefully we can get an increase on that this time. It's, as I say, it's a wider picture. But I say we'll be out on Thursday, and so will the other parties, all pushing to vote, regardless of who you are. Vote at least. Don't leave it wasted.
I think one of the difficulties at the university is that you can't go and knock everyone's door because they're behind, they're all kind of in blocks, and you can't get behind some locked doors. Students are asleep during the day, and that makes it difficult. So that's definitely one difficulty compared to in town, where you can knock on everyone's door and have a conversation with everyone. In which case it leaves you to kind of campus around Alex Square and popular areas face to face, which is always the best way. I think also social media is a way to engage with students, which is something a lot of, I get the impression the average age of councillors is quite old, and many of them are not so familiar with social media platforms, which is one great reason to have, you know, young people in the council, is that they can help relate to equally young thoughts and ways of working. So I think that could be improved, and I think a bit more working with the Students' Union. It's very hard to kind of penetrate a large number of students without the use of the union to kind of help that. I think it would be great if they could do a bit more just pushing things in a fair manner, and each of the parties working together to help advertise that. So if we all had, I think we've all done promotional videos, and if we could all collaborate to get one going that the union can then promote, then we're working collaboratively to make sure that people are at least voting. And you guys, you can all make a difference as well. You can have a conversation with your friends. Do you know there's a vote on Thursday? Oh no, I didn't. Maybe you should think about that. Word of mouth can, you know, exponentially change what we're thinking and awareness.
Thanks, Martin. Lovely question, I think. I think the question relates not just to during the election, but to engaging with the student population throughout the year. And it would be interesting to know how much engagement has been done by the previous councillors with the student population, just as an example of what may or may not have been done. I think, yes, voting is the important point for this week, but it's what commitments are going to be made after that. Now, I currently do work with the student union on a number of issues. I also work with other parts of the organisation from a staff perspective. So I work with facilities management, I work with HRMD. So I think that's another way to engage with the student population, is through the staff as well, and through the impact that they can have. But yes, please, get out and vote on Thursday and encourage your friends.
Something that's been really good for you know, participation in votes has been automatic voter registration, which was campaigned for, and still got that because of Labour councillors. As well as this, I know that if you look at Manchester Uni, which is kind of similar in the sense it's the way it is, but it's like, I don't know when it's from, but their turnout was kind of lower by 3%, whereas ours has gone up by 7%. So we are kind of doing something right by kind of getting people involved more. We'd be looking forward to working really closely with the Students' Union, with people like Matty and Rihanna. I think it's true what you say about engaging with people on social media, and making sure see as well that these issues are really relevant to them, because there's kind of this thing of like the campus bubble. Because of where we are, we don't really feel, some people don't really feel that connected to the city, especially if you're a first year, like you just basically live on campus and only go to town for sugar. But yeah, so if we create better links with the city, I think people would kind of be more aware.
I would like to say that the general election had the highest turnout on campus out of any election since the Labour landslide of 1997. that was, forgive me, was not down to DUSU, but we will be working with the future DUSU Union Development and the future DUSU President. I thank the current President for putting out the video where he told everyone that council elections are boring. Sorry. But on a more serious note, Nathan Burns, the current sitting Labour councillor for this ward, last night was made the youngest cabinet member, and his brief is digital strategy, so it will be his prerogative to go out and speak to students up and down the district.
As said previously, obviously it's so important for students to vote, and I do agree that the automatic registration is brilliant, because obviously as a politics student I knew there was an election, but especially last year, but others don't. This campaign we've tried to be a lot more on social media, so we released a few videos which I know a few of you have seen. We've also created some posters, because last year I struggled personally, and I know a lot of my flatmates did, to actually find where I was supposed to vote or how I was supposed to vote. So we've released some new posters that are very personable. They say, you know, if you're in Pendle, you're going to vote in the Chaplaincy Centre. We've really tried to make it a lot easier this year for students to find out how they're actually supposed to vote. Obviously, it seems extremely important for students to vote, because we, nationally, younger people aren't the most active in politics, or we're the most active in politics, but in terms of the actual voting turnout, it does tend to be the older people that vote. So this election is so important. You can have a genuine say on what happens in this ward. So obviously it's very important to vote whoever you want to. It would be great for results.
Really great points raised by everyone, obviously especially Jane and the Greens were particularly outstanding, as they have been on several questions actually. So they're all answering the symptom though. The problem is that politics is exceptionally broken. The problem is that possibly exceeding a few people in this room who are actually interested, you join someone in the street and they either like, oh, forget it, or they're like, oh, they're all their own idiots, or they just like, are not even interested because they know they're not listened to. I have tried, believe me, I have tried to get through to anyone with the influence to make things slightly less bad. Okay, personally, I'm very familiar with education policy. Can you get through to anyone? I mean, go with the worst, but anyway, since that you can't actually make a difference as a person except have a vote and it feels so futile. We need to understand that and relate to that. That's what the city council needs to understand and relate to. If you say to someone in where I come from that you're a politician, that's a dirty word. That is an insult. That is not a compliment. Why? Because people aren't listening. We are listening. We have been around every house in this ward several times. We're inviting comments. Please email us, libdem.scottforth@gmail.com. It's not hard to remember. Even easier, libdem.lanksuni@gmail.com. That'll get here as well.
Facebook page.
Yeah, Facebook page. Yeah. Okay. We actually, and Instagram, yeah. Okay. We actually want to know what you think. We actually care. Okay, the council can't do much, but it can influence a few things. And we're starting here to actually try and make a positive difference. There are as yet no Lib Dem councillors. We want to change things up slightly. We want to actually listen. We want to start bringing that to politics where people who have a clue, who actually do a job and work and know what it's like in a certain sector of industry, have a voice that can feed back in. Rather than some person being in charge, whipping up all their MPs and pushing through whatever they like, without actually talking to anyone in the real world.
Cool, thanks. So we're drawing to close, and as part of this, it's kind of nice to hear everybody's views and like just a closing statement for everyone. So as we started on that side, when we did opening statements, we'll start on this side.
First of all, I want to thank you all for your interesting questions tonight, and it's been really interesting to hear the views from the other parties as well. I'm just going to sum up by just reminding you of the 3 pillars that the Green Party stands for, just in case you don't know what they are. The 3 things that we fundamentally stand for are reducing social inequality, We stand for participatory democracy, so we want to involve people in the decision making. And obviously with the Green Party, we stand for environmental sustainability. So if any of those three issues are important to you, and hopefully all three of them are, then please vote on Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you to those who have come here today. Like I say, word of mouth, tell your friends, ask your friends whether they know there's a vote on, because it's really important that people will go and vote. I would say that I would hope that you vote selflessly, in the sense that you've got a number of individuals here that each have different experiences and knowledge that they can bring to the council. And we are going for City Council, and that's not just the University Ward. Obviously we are representing this ward, but we can bring a lot of difference to the city in addition to this ward, and hopefully bring those the two of you together.
Well, first off, I'd just like to say thank you, echo the Greens, and saying thank you for coming. It's good to see such a turnout, which is very, very crucial in this election. You know, from what we've heard on the doorstep and from speaking to students on campus, you know, it's been really good getting in touch and listening and trying to see what we can do to make Lancaster better and bring change about. And on Thursday, I wish just to put out for you just to remember our 5-point plan, and that's what we stand on for this election coming up. And that is, you know, protecting Lancaster's maritime economy, that is improving bus services, that's opposing the Garden Village for the reasons that we've set out this evening, supporting development in town, brownfield development, you know, the canal corridor is a prime example of that. And finally, improving mental health services, something which we didn't get onto tonight, but I believe is nonetheless a vital topic that, you know, we are fighting for. And if you have any issues with that or want to talk to us about it, Carl and I, we're on Facebook. Vote Carl and Guy for University of Scotland. Getting ahead of myself. But yeah, vote Tory on Thursday, and thank you very much.
I'll just quickly mirror out exactly what you said, Guy, obviously. The 5-point plan is so crucial. We know that if we are elected, it's a big if, but if we are elected, we must work to maintain your confidence, and we need to deliver that 5-point plan. And whoever you vote for, just make sure it isn't Labour, because they're just absolutely awful. I mean, Nathan Burns, he's been there a year now, and he promised he'd scrap the £1 bus charge. It's still not done. So just make sure whoever you vote for is for people who can actually deliver, and that definitely isn't Labour at this election. Vote Green or Lib Dem instead if you don't want to vote for us.
Guys, we're applying to you for a job. Okay? I actually found out very recently it's a salaried job as well. Okay? You need to actually think about how you're voting, about why you're voting, and about who you think here can actually add value and serve the community well in that capacity. I want to point out from a policy point of view that the ward of Scotford Rural, in which we are, has one issue of absolutely surpassing importance and urgency at this point in time. Okay? The Labour City Council are pushing through a Conservative national policy. I don't mind which of them wants to blame the other for it, to build 3,500 new homes in these green fields and woods. Now we are not, and I say we, us who live in this area, because I say we've talked to people, we are not absolutely against any development. We are not selfishly opposing in a NIMBY-ish way. It's really refreshing that people aren't doing that. But the main concern is that the whole proposal is really on course to fail spectacularly. Okay? We're proposing 3,500 new houses in a city which is already the second most affordable in the UK, in a situation where I've outlined before the costs that mean that we're not going to have any affordable housing in there, which we actually need. And there's not any evidence whatsoever that we actually need that. We're finding evidence for a solution that was imagined, not seeing problems and then finding solutions. We have got in writing that no work has been done whatsoever to actually assess the impact on our transportation infrastructure. That is point zero. You don't make a plan, sign for Garden Village, and then think, oh, what are the consequences?
You actually, master plan means thinking about it first. It looks like the local council leaders are not doing that adequately. It looks like a lot of local council members are voting according to their whim. Very nice they're getting there, I'm sure they're lovely people, but they're not actually standing up for themselves, looking at things in detail, and making sensible suggestions. That is what we would like to do. There are no Lib Dems there at the moment. We would like to be that voice of reason, of thought. You think about how you want to vote. It is entirely your decision. Your decision is valid, whatever it may be. Thank you.
So you've met me and Ian, you've heard our policies. A vote for us is genuinely an alternative voice because we don't have any seats, which isn't all bad. It means that we can genuinely provide an alternative voice. As a second year student personally, I think I can represent voices on and off campus, and I understand genuinely what people need when they're going off campus. They need cheap buses for rent. They need somewhere off campus where they can study, because I don't know if anyone else has been to the library, but I've not been able to find a seat in weeks. So I think it's really important to have someone there that can genuinely represent students who have been on campus and off campus, and that's the Lib Dems. Thanks.
Oh yeah, so I just want to thank everyone for coming. It's good to see so many people. And I hope we've given you a couple of reasons why you should vote Labour. We've achieved a lot of things, from automatic voter registration to saving the sugar house. If you want to see things like this continue, then use both votes for Labour. And if you want to see a council with a Labour majority that can actually deliver real change, yeah, so vote Labour.
As your city councillors, we will have to work diligently and make sure that your voices and concerns are heard within the city council chamber, and we can do that from a position of strength within the currently ruling Labour group. A Labour majority means that we can deliver on the promises that we have made, and we firmly believe that what we have promised we can deliver on. We have done so much already. We have protected the sugar house. We've got automatic registration on campus, and we have fought for council tax relief for the poorest in the area. But we have more to achieve. With majority, we will lobby for better mental health services at the university. We will ensure that City Council's development plan to benefit students by advertising jobs that they create. And we will lead the fight against shoddy student landlords. Your vote counts, and students care about more than just tuition fees. We care about less disruptive developments around the university. We care about affordable and regular transport buses. And I will just issue a correction. Nathan Burns did send a letter, but unfortunately, oh, I'm terribly sorry, but Labour don't control the buses. It's a private monopoly.
Yeah, exactly. You should have made a promise. You promised to lobby, you promised to actually do it.
Guys, can we just let Oliver finish his speech, and this is just the end of it, so...
Thank you, Chair. Yes. So that is why I want you to use both votes for the Labour Party when it comes to it, when you look at the ballot box. If you live in Cartmel, Grant or Lonsdale, your polling station is Barkhouse Farm. If you live in any other college, it will be the Chaplaincy Centre. Whichever way you vote, I hope you do so, but I really do hope that you can find it in your heart to have both votes for Labour. Amara.
So thanks everybody for coming. That's it from our panel. So I'd like to pass back.
Hello again. Just like to say a big thank you to all of you for coming down to this event. These kind of things don't happen. Thank you. Secondly, don't forget to vote on Thursday, like the candidates have already said. If you live in certain colleges, it's the Chaplaincy, and others down at Barker House. And lastly, if you hadn't had your fill of democracy, it's the Students' Union's AGM next week, the big summer meet-up. We'll be having a focus on the cost of living, so do come down to that. And lastly, just thank you to the staff that made this happen and to the whole of the Students' Union who put this event on, not the City Council who have put no effort into promoting this election. So, you know, to those City Councillors out there, do some work.